And welcome back to another Conquest Corner. On this episode, we are going to finish up currently, as of recording, this is just getting into February now, the last of the regiments that Old Dominion have that are actually currently released. Now, there are some other regiments that they've told us about. Is that if you're playing tournaments or something officially, can't necessarily bring them because they don't do proxies that way. Although I will still be talking about them. There might be a bit of delay getting to them because I just want more experience with them. I've done a little bit with the Centaurs, a little bit with Cultists, but I want to get a better feel for that, especially talk about, which one? The Profane Sepulchre. Before I talk about that, I absolutely want to get more experience with it. So the hope is maybe somewhat soon to be recording some games related to that and using some proxies for those models and just kind of getting a feel for them. But that means on this video, we're going to talk about Athanatoi and Varangian Guard, where to use them, what they do for you, and just sort of my thoughts on those. For when this is done, we'll move on to probably a bit more of the intro series, and then I'm going to pick a different faction. I don't know if I'll talk through everything of them, but some parts of them, then kind of swap around. We'll kind of see exactly how I decide to do it. Keep in mind, if you have any interest in picking up stuff for Conquest, including the boxes for Old Dominion or any other armies or Sorcerer Kings coming up in, at this point, about 2 months from now, that we do have a discount code for you. It's Terrain Kickers. We have in show notes underneath, we do have a link for that as well. So you can click there. You save yourself 10%, helps us out as well. Really does help be able to keep the lights on, keep us going, and, allows us to help get you coverage that we like to do. All right, so without further ado, let's take a look at these units. And in case this is your first one, I'd like to start by talking about which characters take them, because this is a warband regiment game. You're not just taking them for fun. Now, we're not showing the mounted strategos here. The strategos and the mounted strategos don't have different options for what they take. They both take the same exact things. But it's these two units that will take them. Let me shift it a little bit there. There we go. As always, I usually do put this out on the the podcatchers, so I will explain the things I'm talking about. If you're looking, then you can see the things that I'm pointing to and all of that as well. Actually, I think I forgot to post the last one on the podcatchers. It'll be up there as well. So if you want to take the Varangian Guard, the Ziliarch is your only option. He takes them as a restricted choice. That does mean you are essentially looking at max of 2. You could go higher if you're running double Ziliarch, but now I kind of just think you're getting a little crazy. But I guess technically you could get up to 4 if you're allowing yourself to run doubles of them. But realistically, you're looking at 1 to maybe 2 of the units, and we've seen that happen before. As for the Athanatoi, you absolutely can take them with Ziliarch. Ziliarch takes them as a restricted option. However, that tends not to be the way I take them. Oh, excuse me. The reason I never take them that way is because I'm saving his restricted option for Varangian Guard. If that's the only way I can get them, every time I'm taking an Athanatoi, I am not able to take a Varangian Guard with the Ziliarch. So I'm just going to do it that way. The much better option, the option I tend to go with, especially I think if you're taking a mounted strategos, is to take it in your strategos. So he can take them as mainstay in this case. Currently, again, Centaurs aren't out right now. When I take my strategos, the mainstay is almost always an Athanatoi. I sometimes have done Legionnaires if I can't afford the points, or if essentially is that extra. But normally, if I'm doing, I usually take an Athanatoi. For mounted strategos, I have proxied the Centaurs. If I'm not proxying, I apologize. If I'm not proxying them, I will take the Athanatoi almost exclusively. I've done Legionnaires sometimes, but usually I take the Athanatoi. Because for the strategos, what I really want is this Cataphracti. That's my option there. I'm not too worried about his Praetorian Guard. We just did a video on Praetorian Guard, and you already know my feelings on that. And so far, from what everyone said, pretty much your guys' feelings as well. But I really see the strategos as the Athanatoi option. I really see the Ziliarch as the Varangian Guard option. I said, obviously, the Ziliarch can take both, but I think if you're taking a Ziliarch and you're not trying to branch into Varangian Guard, I'm not entirely sure what you're doing. So let's take a look at the units themselves. We'll talk about them, then we'll talk about how they play into those other pieces and go through all of that. So you are now, for the last one we looked at, they were both medium, so we didn't realize I talked about that as much. Here we do want to make that distinction. Athanatoi are medium, Varangian Guard are heavy, so Varangian Guard aren't coming out until at least turn 3. They're not coming from the edges till turn 4. We do know there's going to be some rules updates at some point, so currently that's the way that works. So it's going to take you a little bit longer maybe to get those into the fight. Athanatoi 170 points. Varangian Guard are currently sitting at 200. They're both move 5. They are both sitting at evade 1. And then they start having some changes. So Athanatoi in general are much less survivable. And the damage output has higher potential. Quote unquote. Let's see. Higher potential. And we'll see exactly what that means. So they are Clash 2. Remember, they can become inspired or take an option that makes them always inspired, so they could be a little bit better. Whereas the Varangian Guard are Clash 3, so naturally Varangian Guard just hit better. However, the wounds and attacks flip-flop. So Athanatoi are 6 attacks, 4 wounds. Varangian Guard are 4 attacks, 6 wounds. So they get a lot more swings, but they have less wounds. They're easier to destroy. They're also easier because their defense is worse. And Athanatoi had defense 2, Varangian Guards had defense 3, as well as they also, as we'll see, Varangian Guard also have Hearted. So if you happen to be able to cleave or brutal impact or do any of those sort of fun rules through you, it's more likely I get my armor save or closer to the armor save here. So stat-wise, I see Athanatoi, especially when we talk about how they have flurry, they're the blender. Their goal is to target things that are light, not good armor, or no armor, just evade, or not good saves. Things that if you just throw enough dice at them, they are going to fail. And their stat block looks that way. They get 6 attacks a base. They do have a leader, so that leader has 7 attacks. You can get a 3 stand to have 19 attacks. You can get tons of attacks. You might be hitting on 2s, but if I can be charging to be inspired, or if I have an upgrade to be inspired, I'm now hitting on 3s. Flurry, I'm re-rolling. That could mean if I can essentially make it work, if I can be hitting on 3s, then I'm getting 75% of my swings. So I'm looking at, 13 or so. No, sorry, we're looking at 18. That's what we said, 18/19, so 75%. So that was only 2/3. We're probably looking at more 14, if dice are going your way, 14/15, sort of in that range. As long as they don't have a good save, they're absolutely going to lose things. Even if they have a decent save, even if their save is a 3-up, they're looking at about half. They're looking at 7 or so wounds. Maybe it spikes a little bit more. So having the 6 attacks follows that, but the 4 wounds, they will go down a lot easier, and 2 defense, and none of their things bonus their defense. They have counterattack. We'll talk about that. But let's continue talking about the Athanatoi. So I said they are bodyguards. For anyone not familiar with the bodyguard rules, because it doesn't come up that much, your character stands can refuse challenges, and you don't break the unit when that happens. So you can just refuse them. Keep in mind that bodyguard does not say that you can always refuse it. It's just you don't become broken when you refuse. So if you're already broken, then you cannot refuse. You must take it. The other key word they have is flurry. So flurry means you get to reroll your hits when you're clashing. Clashing or dueling, but these ones are clashing. Animate Vessel, of course, they are terrifying because we are all undead except for cultists and assassins. They have a leader model, so you get that extra attack. And their memory of old, so if you get to that higher tier, is counterattack. So when the enemy's swinging at you, if you roll a 1 on your defense save, then the enemy takes a hit. These hits do not benefit from any other special rule that affect class actions. So essentially, they just took 1 hit for each time this happens. They'll roll their saves per normal, all things like that. Does the same sort of idea in duels, but these aren't dueling. Their memories of old is nice. I'm not super concerned about it, just because comparatively, it's a little bit, I do a little something back to you, but this isn't, going to be as destructive as people think. So I paused there for a moment. I couldn't remember the rule of lethal demise. So I was looking at counterattack. Counterattack is when I succeed on my defense with a 1. Lethal demise is for every time I fail. It's never going to do as much damage as like that kind of thing. So it's like, it's a nice to have. You have it. But I'm not worried if they're not getting this memory of old. So that's what we have for that. For options here, obviously I have a standard bearer. Both of them can take a standard bearer. You're okay with taking them for 10 points. Extra stands, Athanatoi are 50 points. Varangian Guard are going to be 55, so a little bit more expensive. Officers, both 25 points here for the Athanatoi. You have Princeps, gives you always inspired, which getting to the 3s at all points really, really helps you out, because now you're getting those 75% successes. The other one is the Dark Cenotaph. Your command stand counts as 2 additional stands of the same type for seizing objectives. If you're taking anything, take the Princeps. I usually take Princeps on these units. The reason why I want to take a Princeps, more important for the Varangian Guard, a little bit less for the Athanatoi, since they do have Flurry. It's still not as good if you don't use it, but it will cover the skew a little bit more. Where the Varangian, especially because they also have 6 attacks each, so when you have more attacks, you are more likely to be, the more you have of something, the more closer you can be to the average. It's the law of large numbers. So the fact that you're having 2 extra swings per base means that in general you're going to be closer to that average value. So the Princeps always puts you on a 3, that's much better, but since you actually get to reroll, a rerollable 2 is better than a single roll of a 3-up, like the Varangian Guard have. So to be able to get that consistency, especially when you have so many attacks, I prefer to have Princeps, but if I only have the points for 1 and I'm taking both these units, I'm sticking the Varangian Guard, and we'll see a little bit more reasons why in a moment. So these guys are a good character bunker in certain ways. They're a decent character bunker because they have the bodyguard. They're especially, I've seen some people, what you do, if you have an Archimandrite, one of the early rounds when both these are out, the Archimandrite, because out of range for other spells and all, will go pop to this unit. Because then if they get in combat with the Archimandrite, you don't have to worry about them actually swinging at her, because you can just refuse the challenge as long as you aren't previously broken. I don't know if I'd necessarily do that as much. The problem with their survivability is their defense is base 2. Yeah, counterattack does something, but I need to be making those saves, and I'm not going to make a lot of them. Did I mean my save at all? I'm not getting one. Or I'll have my evade 1. Whoop-de-doo. That's nothing. Especially when you're a 4-wound model, we've all had times, that means a 3 block is only 12 wounds. We've all had times when you have to roll on 1s, and you got like 6, 7 dice to roll, and you fail every single one of them. These guys are then half gone. So I do like them. I do tend to take an Athanatoi. I do tend to take them. I usually go a little bit more min for them. I usually will go about 3 stands. Depending on my list type, I have gone more. I have gone 4 or 5 stands. I never go above that. I do like 4 with the character. I also like 3 with the character. I wouldn't necessarily. I'll put them with my own foot strategos. So if I have an own foot strategos, that's where I put them. That's their plan. I don't think I would necessarily worry about putting other, like a caster into here. It does some good. The problem is the transfer over, I'm losing a round of casting, and these guys are only survivable if they can hit into lighter things that they want to go after, if they're not going to be shot up. You know, there's some things that need to have happen. I don't mind taking them as 170 points, or 195, because I'm taking that Princeps. 195 points, so sub 200, as a unit moving around that's sitting on, what at this point we're looking at 19 attacks. If I took a foot strategos is in there. For what I would take with it, let's take a look at, because obviously the mounted one isn't going to help them in the same sort of way. So this is a unit where I've absolutely taken Regalia for my first level to give that command stand some extra attacks. Again, hitting on 3s, rerolling 2 more attacks is really going to help out. Since this is a unit that if you have a save, they're going to potentially get bogged down. They're only going to win if I can just make you roll tons and tons of saves. We're going to see that this is a quantity, where Varangian Guard are quality. So I do like the Regalia level. They're the first one to be able to get those extra attacks in. And also, I'm not as worried with, I take my Strategos as cheap. If you really want to combat Strategos, obviously take some of the combat tiers. For, let's see, treasures, does anything really help them? Obviously, there's banners. Again, the Celestine banner is more expensive, so don't bother doing that. Your Cenotaph is better. Giving them flank, I'm not so concerned with when they come in. I just want them in on the board. Normally, I do prefer them to be a little bit later, because like I said, they're not exceptionally survivable, so I want to have potentially locked down the big, heavy threats, and then these guys can come in as cleanup. These guys can come in, charge into someone, and just get tons of swings on them to start removing the stands. I want them at the right time, and I find the right time for them is a little bit later in the game, personally. Or at least by the time they get into something. Aura Death, I'm not worried about giving them. We have a banner for that. Untouchable, no. That doesn't do enough. You get to reroll the 6s. You're not saving on a good enough number for rerolling 6s to really help you. Obviously, he could buff himself a little bit. So he could take some different armors, which will help him out. It does give that regiment, if you take the Curtis of Hazliah Shadow, +1 to their evasion, be evade 2. I don't think that's worth it. If you're wanting to run a big block, if you're running 5 with the Strategos, sure. But when you're only 4 wounds and it's only getting me to evade 2, if they have a type of unit like you that faces off with them and they get the charge, you're losing a lot of models, if not the unit. For weapons, a decent option here is Snafung. Snafung gives the character cleave, but gives the unit line breaker. This is a unit that doesn't reduce you in any way. But if you're having a line breaker, now they're not getting, just as we'll pull up line breaker for anyone watching, you ignore shields, you ignore bastions. So, and you do also while doing impacted, you don't have those. But you ignore your shields and you ignore bastions. So that means now your viability of a target to go at. You could pick someone who happens to has a shield or has bastion. They're usually say 2 with one or the other, potentially both. So instead of a 4-up save, they're now, or a 4 under save, now they're looking at 2 under save. Now you're legitimately 50% more effective than you just were. You're going to get a lot more in. And for this unit that doesn't do the extra bit, they don't reduce you in any way, this is a great way to get some of that reduction. There's a chance they don't have shields, they don't have bastion, but again, you would steer if you're going to take this upgrade. So that is a banner, not a bad option. Keep in mind to take the banner, you'll have to take a Regalia level 1, but you might want Regalia level 1 anyway. So my apologies, that was a weapon. Sorry, I closed it out and then moved it. So the weapon is 30, that's what a banner I was looking at anyway. I wouldn't, if you want to, kit out your Strategos to fight, you can take Etheria or something like that. Otherwise, not going to bother with any of that. This is a spot where the Supremacy is not as useful. The Reform could be nice, especially if you're a bigger unit. You could keep them chunkier, Reform to be wide, charge, attack. So, but getting your memory, I'm not as concerned about. Again, you might have times where you haven't rolled that one, it takes out the last wound of the opponent there, or maybe, I'm really low on wounds. If I swing at him and he hits back, I can only take a few wounds. That could take me out. So sure, we can play all those sorts of mind games, but I don't think it's going to get you as far, and I'm not really as thrilled with it. So this is a unit. The other nice part is they're fine at tier 1. They're honestly fine at tier 2 because I'm going to take them an upgrade that keeps them inspired. Tier 3, that's fine as well. Tier 4 is the next time that honestly I care. Every other tier, since I'm going to take the Princeps, doesn't matter to me. I'll just be better when I have Princeps. For buffs related to them, obviously such things, we can heal. This is a unit that heals very easily from Archimandrite, because you only have 4 wounds per stand, so you can get back a stand essentially even at level 1. So you can get those back very, very quickly. No one necessarily buffs it as much. Obviously, you could go up higher in tiers. I don't care about that. You heal, yes, useful. Get Aura Death, not as concerned personally. The reason I was worried about the Aura Death part is Aura Death is only going to go off if they're already in. And if they're already in, unless the Aura Death is going to take them out, it's probably not unless they're already hurt, but let's assume it's not going to take them out. I'm not super survivable. I'm going to lose a lot there. It could be a useful way to take off the last few wounds, but if I'm going to put Aura Death on someone, there's usually better targets. And in reality, with my Archimandrite, usually I'm doing a heal, and then I'm either doing the attack spell, or I'm upping someone else's tier level that I want them to be at, because I want certain bonuses and things like that. So that's the other sort of piece that I do. So Athanatoi, I don't know if I made it clear. I do really like the unit. I think they serve great purpose. I think they're great looking. I absolutely love the look of these double sword models. I think they, especially if you look at their paint scheme that they do, mine's a bit different. You'll see mine in the thumbnail here. But this was a lot of fun because when it was done, I could really put on a lot of those Vetigress effects from Dirty Down and all that really makes these models shine. And the same thing, I used their corrosion and all of that. So I was really able to dirty them up in a really pleasing way. All right, that is Athanatoi. Let's talk about the Varangian Guard in more detail. So we already talked about their base stats. The big key is 6 wounds to stand, but only 4 attacks. So you're not getting a lot of attacks, but you are getting a lot of wounds. They have base cleave 2. So at base cleave 2, these guys are removing quite a bit of armor already. Hardened 1, so they're ignoring some of your cleave. So that 3 defense is more likely to be 3 or close to 3. They're more likely to at least to have the 2 than Athanatoi are. Obviously, Animate Vessel's terrifying 1, of course. They have a leader model as well, so they get that extra attack on the leader. So in a 3-pack, you're now looking at 13 attacks for these guys. Much better than 12. Every little attack helps. The big key for these guys is the memory result, and this is why you need to get to tier 2. In reality-wise, you need to get to tier 3, but honestly, I'm taking the Princeps here. Remember, the Princeps is the one that makes you inspired, although the Princeps is 30 points here. To me, it's almost an auto-include. Because memories of old, these guys get Line Breaker, ignore a shield, ignore a bastion, and an extra cleave. So, essentially, that means if you... Some things have evade, and you want to avoid stuff with good evades, avoid fire and ghosts and stuff like that. But if you don't have an evade, and there's plenty of units that don't have one, I'm minusing 3 to your armor, you get no shields, you get no bastion. For most things in this game, that means they are on almost no save. If they don't have an evade, most things in this game are on 0 save, or maybe a 1. For something that wouldn't be, what is the name of, I'm not as comfortable with back home, so I don't remember the names of all their stuff. It is the Forged. Steel Forged, Magnum Forged, Stone Forged. If you actually take a look at them, they are... what I was doing before, I was looking for defense 4 units. They're defense 4, so they would be on ones. They'd be on ones because of their evade, of course, as well. You do have certain units, not the Dragon Slayers. No, Dragon Slayers, yes, because Dragon Slayers are defense 3 with Hardened 2. So in reality, if you get to the Cleave 3, you're really only putting them to 2s. But you are putting them to 2s. So if you're not fighting Dweg, you're probably... Sorry, wrong screen. There we go. If you're not fighting Dweg, you're getting quite a bit through. And there's a lot of times things won't get saves. I've went against, Wadroon Dinosaurs. I've went against some of the Jotnars. All those sort of units. And they're on none or almost no save. Your big, heavy units, they don't get anything from us. I've had plenty of cases where when I swing in, because of these rules, you're just taking all that damage. Now you're going to resolve at -1. They wipe the floor with people as long as they don't evade. So you do have to, even with a unit like this, especially probably with a unit like this, you have to be very careful what you aim them at. This is a hammer, not a blender. The Athanatoi were the blender. These are the hammers. Because you're only 4 attacks each compared to what we saw for other things, your clash is quite good, but you are less attacks in general, so you have to make them count. If someone has a very good evade, then you're not really getting your bonuses. You're not getting all your cleave abilities. You're not getting a line breaker. You're not getting what you're paying 200 points for in a heavy unit to do. You're paying 55 more points per guy, so you're paying a lot for these guys. I personally take them in like 4s or 5s with my Strategos. I'm sorry, Zilliarch. My apologies for my Zilliarch. So I take these guys in big units. For that, I need to hit things that I get value out of, which means I want to hit something with armor. So, personally, at this moment, I don't leave home without these guys. Or if I do, the only time I leave home without them is because I'm taking Bucephaly. You need something that punches through armor. These are our 2 punchers. If you're going more of, the caster type level, if you're going higher deacons, stuff like that, or going fallen divinity, could easily go Bucephaly. If I'm taking the Zilliarch, I'm almost always taking a Varangian Guard unit in there. When you compare the two, Bucephaly a little bit more expensive. Their evade is better, although they don't have the hardened, so they're more likely to need that extra bit. They're Cleave 3. These guys can get to Cleave 3 as well, although these guys do end up having that line breaker, which helps. You're going to take a standard bearer to get the extra move. That will get them the unstoppable, so they don't have it natively to Bucephaly, but you can get to it. And those guys obviously do some impact hits with brutal impact, so they get some damage in ahead of time. Both same amount of attacks. Bucephaly have less wounds, one less wound, a little bit faster, so very comparable. If you're taking Bucephaly, it's not a feel bad if you don't take Varangian Guard. I think, to me, honestly, if you're playing this game with the current things that are out there, now that more people have more fillness of their armies, with what's out there, you need something that punches through armor. You know, Dwagholm need their Dragon Slayers. We need our Varangian Guard or Bucephaly. And every faction has something like that. You need to be able to punch through heavy armors, or potentially punch through heavy armors, or that really annoying unit that, ooh, like I can get in there, but if they survive and they hit me back, I'm losing a lot. You're not going to lose with these guys. And with 6 wounds to stand, they're going to stick around really good. That does mean healing for the Archimandrite's a little bit tougher. You got to wait till you get a little bit higher to be able to heal stands back. But it's going to be a lot longer before you lose a stand, so healing partial stands back or partial wounds on a stand back is still going to make a pretty big difference for you. Since only the Ziliar can take it, that's mostly where I'm looking. Anyone else to go in here would have to swap in if a character is going to go in. And it's not a bad Archimandrite bubble if you're looking for that, although you're getting into close combat. Although with 6 wounds to stand and good defense, you're probably okay sticking around. The only problem is that they have a character, they challenge your Archimandrite, and you either break or you fail and get destroyed. Hybrid Deacon, no, I don't care about putting them in there. The Hybrid Deacon getting destroyed at some point in the game is fine. I don't need them closer. Archimandrite, I kind of want in the line. Hybrid Deacon, I'm fine if it's falling behind. Strategos, unless you're trying to really go for a destructive Strategos, don't bother spending the extra action to go in here. Luckily, there's a lot of times your non-casting characters have turns where they do nothing, so they could be hopping forward. However, if I'm doing this, I'm putting the Ziliarch in there. For the Ziliarch, so a few options you have. If you want to take these guys technically a little bit cheaper, you can take the Sanctified Librarian. And for that, again, it's a banner. You have to take Regalia level 1, but I kind of want Regalia level 1 because I want all those extra attacks. That's a really great way to get more attacks here. That just lets you take this restricted option as mainstay. So since they're a restricted option, you otherwise have to take a mainstay unit to get them. So you could spend 40 points, the 30 for the banner, the 10 for the retinue, and be able to take them just as that with attacks. I'd rather just take the Legionnaires. Assuming I could afford it, I'm going to take the Legionnaires. I'm going to take a small 3-pack. They're going to sit on backfield objectives, and they will charge someone when it will annoy my opponent and help me. So you absolutely could take that. I almost always take the Princeps here. Again, I want to be inspired. If I'm not, then maybe the Celestine banner. But again, I'm spending more points for that way, so not necessarily as good. Vexel of the Lost, getting flank isn't bad. The reason why flank is really, really useful, and this probably always happened to us, remember, starting in turn 3, you start rolling for heavies, it's on a 2 or under. But your heavies have to come in from the back edge. They can't come in from your redeployment lines. Sometimes, though, if you pushed far enough, your redeployment line will really help you out and get you to a great position. Especially because these guys are a 5 move. They're a little bit slower. Have a banner. Okay, 11 on the first turn because of where we get to. So I often don't want them turn 3. Athanatoi I want turn 3. Or later. I'm fine with later, but even turn 3, I'll board edge them. I won't walk them in from the side often. I'll board edge them from the back, and I'll then get them in position to start hitting people maybe turn 5. These guys I want coming in turn 4 because I want to come in from the side. I want to be able to come in reasonably far up. Hopefully I'm far up. And on either people's flanks or them knowing that I could do it, they had to dedicate resources to be able to deal with this. So having flank, not bad. I don't know if I want to spend those points on it, but definitely not bad. Aura Death, not worried about. Untouchable, not worried about. For what you want to do, Ziliarch there, you could keep them cheap or you can make them really swing. For what you want to do with that, again, you have several different armor choices. For weapon, Eleutheria, of course, is very good because that really does just buff the Ziliarch, and that might be exactly what you want. Yeah, honestly, that's probably the thing that I want, taking a look at it. Do we want... Or Anathema, the brand of the Faithless. Pretty good as well. But Eleutheria is much cheaper and helps out related to... So you get +1 to your clash, and then when you duel, you're better. If you're taking him to be killy, you're really taking him for dueling to be killy, at least to me. So I would probably take that for 10 points to keep it nice and cheap. So for their options, this is an option where if I'm taking a big pack of Varangian Guard, or maybe I'm taking 2, because remember, it is restricted, you could get 2, I could take Legionnaires Varangian Guard, and then I could take potentially the Baron, so that way I can get it by cheaper to use the Supremacy ability for the Ziliarch. So Obdurate, Bone and Stone. Bone and Stone. So, in addition, once per battle, the Ziliarch can activate the Supremacy ability until the end of the round. All friendly regiments in this warband may perform a free additional clash. If I was going to want to use his ability, then if I had the Centaurs out, maybe that's a little bit different story. But currently, then I want a minimum big pack of Varangian Guard. Maybe I even want 2. Again, the Athanatoi you could do this with as well. So I think maybe when I'm done this, I'll do a little bit about character series and kind of talk about options, maybe try out some really weird stuff. But I'd rather have the Varangian Guard here. And if I'm going to run his ability, I probably want maybe even 2 units of Varangian Guard if I can afford them. Just because your opponent is going to have things that you need to chop through. And getting that extra attack means I don't have to run as big of units. I could run 3, maybe if I wanted 4 stands. But even 3 is kind of tough to start removing stands because you're 6 wounds. With 3 defense, hardened 1, you're sticking around easier than most other things. Which means getting the swing twice with these 2 little 3 packs is a lot of damage output. Especially if they happen to be always inspired, or we're at tier 3, so they're always inspired. If they can get that, you're now hitting 66% of the time for all your swings. You're looking at 13 of them if you took that standard, or if you take the Regalia level 1, we're at 13, you're looking at 15, because Regalia level 1 adds 2 additional attacks. Yep, they get +2 to their attack characteristic. You're starting to get through 10, 11, those sort of numbers. Your opponent might not have a save at all. I've absolutely had cases where I end up getting 8, 9 hits, or more, because I take bigger units, 8, 9 hits. You take 8, 9 wounds. Now you're resolving at -1, and that really cuts through people. Also keep in mind, there are units that their armor maybe is not amazing. Maybe their things on like 2-up armor, but their resolve is crazy. Maybe it's crazy because of base resolve numbers, like some Drake stuff, or because they're a giant unit. So they have really, really good resolve. Which means if I can't get tons of damage in, I'm not actually going to hurt them, because I'm not getting that I got some damage and I got some resolve. I'm not getting those like sort of, not exactly, but 50-50 sort of thing. The sort of game where I did 6 wounds to you. Oh, but your resolve, you still took a 3, 4, or 5 more. If they have really good resolve, then you better get wounds on the front end. And essentially ignoring all of your defense is going to do that. Again, it doesn't ignore everything, but if your memories are rolled up, they better have more than 3 defense, no shields, no bastion. Because they have any of that, I'm giving them nothing. So I do think that's a bit of a play there. I do think if you want to take the Ziliarch for the supremacy, if you want to make him your warlord, I want at least 2 3 packs of Varangian Guard. Maybe they're 4 packs, maybe one's a 3, maybe one's a 4. Put the Ziliarch in the bigger unit. Personally, though, I tend to run Strategos for my supremacy ability. I do think I wouldn't necessarily be swapping the Strategos in here, but I think the Strategos' supremacy ability helps. Few things. One, let you count your power pools 1 higher. You can get your Inspire or get your Memories of Old faster. Other key feature is that you get the free additional combat reform or reform. Especially if you have a big unit, either one, reform to be able to get a nice wide unit, charge in, or if your opponent hits you, and didn't hit you optimally for you, then you could get that free reform and get to a much better spot. So you want all these stands getting all their attacks. If they can avoid it, if you're having to do supporting attacks, it ain't going well for you. So I think in all ways, I usually want their Strategos ability. I wouldn't be worried about Strategos in there. Hierodeacon's not going to help them. Archimandrite can help them a little bit. Archimandrite to count them as tier 2 early in the game if you're not tier 2. But I would hope by turn 4 or 5 when they're charging, you're at least tier 2. But if for some reason you didn't get the charge off and someone hit you instead, you could count them as one higher level, count them as tier 3. Now you're looking at always inspired. You're looking at those sort of benefits. So you can get a bit more out of it. So I absolutely think that that is some things that you can do. Keep in mind that you are counting their tier as higher, not the pool's tier. So things like heals and stuff like that go off the tier of the pool, not the tier of the stands or the regiment. So just be aware of that. But counting these guys as tier 3 early is huge because, hey, now you're inspired. I didn't get the charge. It doesn't matter. They're survivable enough that I'm usually okay with certain things charging me. So that means if I'm making my stack, if I know my Archimandrite can count them as tier 3 when I'm ready to go so I can get those better stats, sometimes I'll let this more fragile unit or this unit that I need something a little bit more go early because the Varangian Guard will be able to hold up. Let someone hit them, let them do some wounds. Hopefully I live out. I will try to go late with them because I'll try to have the Archimandrite heal up whatever was lost or at least a portion of what was lost. Then, because I pretty much always take them with the Unholy Mastery so I can cast 2 spells. After that, then my goal is to count them as a tier higher, because if at least I'm at tier 2, I'll at least get my Mare's Ult. And if I can get that to then count as tier 3, now I'm going to be inspired. I'm good. I'll swing. I'll have all my bonuses. You probably didn't really hurt me that much. Or if you really did, that was a unit that was designed to take me out, and you can never be mad about that. I'd probably still take Strategos. I could see Archimandrite being your leader because then you could potentially get even to 3 spells because these guys could take up 2 spells and then send someone somewhere else. But I'm probably still not doing that personally. I'm probably still sticking with the Strategos. I really like what he does. So the question becomes, what do you take? This is a dual kit, and I've been doing this through dual kits. First of all, I think you should have both. I think both are great options. I think you need more Varangian Guard than Athanatoi. I think in general, the Athanatoi in smaller blocks, they might not survive out as well. We could make arguments about the amount of damage they do, and you could go through whole spreadsheets of that. But me personally, I'm not as concerned about taking more of them because they're doing something really good, but they're doing things that the rest of my army can do. My army can put out damage. My army is pretty good at putting out damage with no minuses. We have all kinds of ways to do that. So I'm okay if there's a small band and they end up not being too effective. That'll happen some games. The Varangian Guard, I'm much more worried about their effectiveness. I'm more worried because they are my heavy dealers to get through if you have great saves, get resolve, all of that. Because if you have all those things as being very good, I'm very weak on damage versus that. This is a great way to chew through that. Either because I removed all your armor, so I'm going straight through, or you are still somewhat covered, but you have really good resolve, and then I'm just making you take more damage in the front end, so you're more hurt in the back end. And let's face it, we've all had times, if you get to that tier 4, and I'm in combat with you and roll that 6 on that morale, hey, you're taking 2 wounds for each one of those. So I've had stuff like that win me games. So personally, for these two, I have 2 boxes. I'll be honest, I have 2 boxes of each. I've built 2 boxes of each. I almost used most of the Varangian Guard. I only used most of the Athanatoi when we were doing games in a league I'm in, or was in. I'm not sure if we're still doing it personally. Holidays happened and things got crazy. In that, because we were looking at like 2,300 point games at this point. So I just have more points. So I'm throwing more Athanatoi at it because I got them. That was a cheap. Every time like Central was going up by 50 points, they're 50 points a stand. So I just threw an extra stand at the problem. However, the Varangian Guard is what I'll go with. So if money's an issue, 1, use our discount code. Save yourself 10%. Please do. It's that discount code's Train Kickers. We have a thing below. You click that, and then anytime you buy something from Parabellum Store, you save 10%. But if I'm here on a budget, I'm going Varangian Guard. I would absolutely go those first. Athanatoi, you could pick up later. There's Strategos, like I said, there's Strategos can take Legionnaires as his mainstay, so you don't need the Athanatoi. If you are avoiding a Ziliarch for some reason, or don't have one, or don't want to do it, then obviously go Athanatoi. But otherwise, after, say, a starter box, if I don't have either of these sort of things in it or enough of it, I'm going Varangian Guard and making sure I have a Zilliarch, because I want that punch thing. Unless you super love Bucephaly, but I still really think these guys are good. One, I do like their look, and I think they serve a great purpose, that they serve it in a little bit different way from the Bucephaly, and once you can get to like that tier 2 to 3 in a better way. If you can delay them, great. These are better turn 4 because you can come in from the side. You can start cleaning people out turn 5. 5 turns of them doing what they do to a board is more than enough. So those are all the thoughts on those two. Put down in the comments below what you guys think. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to it, go to the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe on our stuff. But then leave some comments. Tell me what you think. Tell me this is the way you use them, if you prefer Athanatoi or anything like that. Other things I would love to hear about. If you have any experience with the unreleased stuff for Old Dominion, let me know. Again, I want to talk about it, but I want to play it more. I want to be more informed. Also, if you want to tell me what you want me to go to next, now that I said, kind of out of Old Dominion, I will do more with them, but I want to get a little bit further before I do. Let me know if you guys want to do a character series, talking about individual characters in a little bit more depth. We've been doing that throughout, but I know sometimes making it separate just to discuss them and their tricks and stuff like that behind them is of interest to people. So do let me know about that sort of stuff. For other things from us, I'm currently this weekend at a board game convention, so this might be the last thing you see for this particular weekend / through early week. But once I'm back to a normal recording schedule, I'm committing myself to the next week putting out the Why You Should Play 100 Kingdoms. That's part of my continuing series of intro to each faction. I'm committing myself to that, and something else for Conquest. I don't know what yet. We'll have to see. Probably not a battle report. I got to try to arrange this, but I do want to get back to doing that. And I have, I think, some decent files so I can print up a Profane Sepulchre so I can start testing that boy out, as well as some centaurs I have. For the cultists and assassins, I'm not going to print out stuff for those. I'm probably just going to use other models and do counts as, but for the other ones, I want something that looks and fits a little bit better, because it might be a little bit till we get them personally, and hey, why not? I got a printer and I've been enjoying running it. So, if you have been enjoying our content, likes, comments, subscribes, all that helps. If you have other people in your play groups or around you that play Conquest as well, let them know, hey, they're talking some Conquest. Watch the stuff. You can suggest things. Again, the Conquest stuff isn't quite as popular, but I enjoy doing it. That's why I do it. But the hope is we see it get more popular from the videos that we make, because that really does help push the channel forward. So we've already talked your ear to death about how to save some money from Conquest. And with that money saved, if you want to kick back as well, we also do have a Patreon. We have that listed below. We don't block any content behind, but I might start putting some stuff to release there early and then some stuff a little bit later, or maybe just a little bit of random musings. I want to be able to give more to our patrons who do subscribe there for us, because I feel bad. I don't feel like I do enough for them. Especially lately, because so much craziness have gone on for us lately, that even the things I might have asked or said, like, hey, what do you guys want us to do next? Oh, we've had to change it because of all this stuff going on. The hope is that things calm down for us, but I might start releasing some timed things for them there, just as a thank you, because, stuff like that, it really does help things go, especially as for battle reports. I'm looking at trying to get a better camera. I want to get a better setup, all those sorts of things. And don't really have the money for this. Had to go get a new car because my old car had like 200,000 miles and died. So those sort of things that used to be purely out of pocket costs, need this sort of stuff to be able to take some time for that. I always will still do it, but then that helps pay it back in time. It helps us be able to advance things that we want to do quicker. Obviously, if you can't afford it, I completely understand. Life is tough. Things are very tough for people. All right, so if you enjoy things like Imperialis, Horus Heresy, Conquest, or Old World, which we are starting to do some stuff on, pay attention to the channel. We'll have plenty more for you. But otherwise, on behalf of everyone here at the show, has a good hobbying and some great gaming.